Hey y'all, welcome back to the Frying Pan of the Crispy Fried Take Sports Podcast, where I give you some of the crispiest takes possible, or some that are just incredibly burnt. I'm your host Crispy, and today in the Frying Pan, I review the Women's and Men's National Championship, my takeaways from the Astros versus Rangers Lone Star Series, a little preview of the Masters, and from Burnt to Crispy in the Masters theme, I'll be ranking golf clubs. And as always, to close out the show, what happened today in sports history? It's April 9th, 2024, so let's get sizzling. Sizzling. Okay, we'll get to the next segment. We have two new national champions in the world of college basketball. UConn and South Carolina, the dominant teams, the favored teams throughout this whole season, I'd say, are your national champions on the women's and men's side. And so I'll dive into a little bit of recap of what I thought of that game, of those both games. And on the women's side, it was a 1v5, like how it's kind of been the whole season, except the 5 on South Carolina were the better team, I guess, than the individual. I tried to phrase that right. That was probably not the best. But anyway, Iowa was just Caitlin Clark. And you can tell it's just Caitlin Clark at the beginning of this game was because Caitlin Clark had 18 first quarter points. And then she only had 12 points the last 3 quarters. And that was the only time they had the lead was when she had 18 in the first quarter. So That was kind of the theme of I think that was the theme of the national championship. It was a 1v5 on both sides, but we'll get into that a little later. South Carolina won 87-75. Crazy. Props to Dawn Staley. That was a well-coached team. She made great adjustments on Caitlin Clark throughout the game to stop her from scoring. And at the end of the day, basketball is just a team sport. It's one of the best team sports out there, and there's nothing you can take away from that. And this was a little bit of a revenge tour for South Carolina because Iowa beat them last year in the Final Four before Iowa lost to LSU in the Natty. And sorry for them. They've lost back-to-back national championships with the best player of all time. And actually, the South Carolina squad, as dominant as they were last year, they lost all 5 of their stars and were able to go undefeated and win the national championship. So that's another crazy thing. Again, props to Dawn Staley. So that's just crazy that they were able to do that. And at the end of the game, after South Carolina beat Iowa, Dawn Staley made sure to give Caitlin Clark her flowers because Caitlin Clark really did revolutionize the sport. This was like the most watched women's game since like 1990. And I'm surprised even 1990 had that many viewers. But Dawn Staley, she gave Caitlin Clark her flowers, and Dawn Staley kind of knows how Caitlin Clark feels. You may think she doesn't, but if you didn't know, Dawn Staley was a player at Virginia from 1988 to 1992 and led her team to 3 Final Fours and never got to win a championship. So she understands where Caitlin Clark's coming from. Dawn Staley was the best player on that team. And it's rough for the Iowa Hawkeye fans and Caitlin Clark, I guess. But, I think this is the kind of the year when the WNBA will actually get attention, good attention at least, because Caitlin Clark, this is a revolutionary draft class for women's basketball. And how I see it is that, women's basketball hasn't been around that much. So the NBA has been around for like a century, basically. Not a century, but I think they're pretty close. And women's basketball is just like starting out, really. And so, like professionally. And so they're kind of hitting the Larry Bird and Magic Johnson ages of basketball where you've kind of got some individual players that could play. You've got Magic Johnson, Larry Bird that could play. And those two players revolutionized the game and inspired all the players now to do what they're doing today. And that's kind of what Caitlin Clark and some of these other players are doing, is that they're setting a new standard for women's basketball, and that's why they're just changing the sport. So that's what I think. I think she'll continue to revolutionize. But again, it stinks for Iowa. if Iowa had any of the players from South Carolina, I think Iowa would have won, but they seem to be carried on the shoulders of Caitlin Clark. So that's kind of how I saw the women's championship. And again, props to Dawn Staley for, winning it all and being the 10th undefeated champion in women's basketball history. Now, switching sides, or I guess switching sports, or not switching genders. UConn, the UConn men's Huskies are one of the most dominant teams of all time. And let's get into that, actually, because they have the biggest. They played Purdue. I'll get into the point differential later. But they matched up against Purdue. Purdue was the best. Purdue was the second best team throughout the season. UConn was the best team. So this was a true who's the best team, who's the best matchup for college for men's hoops. And UConn won 75-60. And honestly, the beginning of the game was close, but that's just because it's the beginning of the game. But once 10 minutes took place, it was clearly that UConn was going to win. And winning by 15 proved that, because they had a plus 140 point differential between their 5 games in the tournament. Let's see, they play Stetson, Northwestern, San Diego State, Illinois, Alabama. Between their 6 games, not 5, there's 6 games in the tournament, they have a plus 140 differential. So that means if you divide that, let's do some math actually. If you divide 140 by 6, you get about 23.33 points. So they on average, they beat their opponents by 23 points, which is the highest of all time. And that's nuts. Because I don't know, that's the highest ever by a long shot. I'm pulling it up right now. And it was, so UConn 2024, plus 140 point differential. The second is Kentucky in 1996 at plus 129. Villanova at 2016 plus 124. And Duke in 1999 plus 123. Wow. That is crazy. And this win for UConn puts them at 6 titles of all time. ESPN calls these they're one of the titans of men's college basketball now, because UConn has 6 titles, North Carolina has 6 titles, Kentucky 8 titles, UCLA 11 titles, with the most in men's college basketball. And they're not stopping anytime soon for UConn. They have some seniors. They're probably going to the NBA, but a lot of their team is sophomores, juniors, and they can pull whoever they want from the transfer portal, honestly. And throughout that game, like I said, I kind of mentioned it earlier, but it was similar to the women's championship, because Edey, being 7'4", is a huge advantage. But when you don't have a supporting cast that can't make any shots really throughout the whole game, it's tough to win. And basically the gameplay was, what Dan Hurley said the gameplay was for this was that they would exchange difficult 2s for Purdue, and they would be shooting more open 3s. And that seemed to work out for them, because even though Edey had 37 points and 10 rebounds, the rest of the team, they only made 1 3. They only made 1 3. No. Yeah, no, they did. Purdue made 1 3 throughout the whole entire game. Just 1. Which is really, really bad. But UConn strategized enough. They got the right defense. They had everything right, which led to UConn being the 12th straight tournament win, because they won last year. So they're back-to-back, which is the first time since Florida in 2007 became back-to-back national champs. And unfortunately for Purdue, I don't think they're going to get any better. Edey's obviously going to the NBA, and they don't really have anyone else that can do anything. And to make it even worse for Purdue fans, Purdue has the most tournament wins without a championship at 49 wins. So they've won 49 times in the national championship. And to win the finals, or to win the finals championship, whatever, you need to win 6. So, yeah, not very good. And also a little bit of opinion, I guess, but Coach Hurley may be insane. The UConn head coach, if you look at his reactions, he is the most exasperating person, the most exaggerating person I've ever seen for a head coach. I mean, the eye rolls, the hand gestures, like just everything. Even at one point in the game, they were up by 50, they were still up by like 12 or 15 or something. His player was on their side of the court and they were setting up a plan offense, and he literally walked onto the court and touched his player to go tell him what to do. And obviously you get a warning for that because you can't do that during a live game. But that was just crazy to see. I mean, obviously it works because you have arguably the best team of all time that we just witnessed, because obviously it works. But I just want to touch on that. That was kind of crazy. And another kind of like relatively new news in the college basketball world, but Coach Cal at Kentucky is leaving. He's going to Arkansas. And this is kind of a crazy coaching carousel because it took some odd things to happen. First off, what started all this was the SMU coach got fired. So once the SMU coach got fired, the USC coach, after 11 seasons, left to go to SMU. And no one really knows why, but he just decided to go to SMU after 11 years at USC. And it took the must bus at Arkansas to just do bad, just miss the tournament this year, for him to kind of be on the hot seat. And then he wanted to leave to USC, and that led to Coach Cal being interested in Kentucky. Well, Coach Cal probably wasn't interested in Arkansas up until they lost in the first round to Jack Golke in the tournament, and now Coach Cal is at Arkansas. And this is a big move because although Kentucky is regarded as a powerhouse and Coach Cal really helped that program a lot, he's done a lot for them, but he hasn't really done anything. He hasn't really done as much as people thought, because he's been there for 15 seasons. He's only made 4 Final Fours. He's had a 410 and 123 record, and he has 1 tournament title. So they're a dominant team, but when it comes tourney time, they're not the best. And the type of recruits he gets should not warrant just one national championship, because he's had 8 number 1 classes, 7 number 2 classes. So basically his whole time here, his whole time at Kentucky, he's had a top 2 class. He's had 53 5-star recruits and 28 4-star recruits. And there's no really excuse to just not perform at that level when you have that type of talent. He's produced a million NBA players, it seems like. Like, there's a reason why Kentucky's regarded as like kind of like the NBA starting point. And Arkansas should become a tournament team, one of the best teams, because I think Kentucky I did say, it doesn't warrant that excess, but it also is tough to win that tournament. 6 straight games against the best teams in college basketball with a limited time to prepare, and it could take anyone being hot to beat you. So it's tough, but I get why he'd want to move to Arkansas. Fresh start, a basketball. I grew up like kind of a basketball school that hasn't had a lot of success. They've had success under Muss. It was shocking that Muss they kind of got rid of him and wanted him to leave, but that's just the coaching world of the day today. And so we'll see. This next basketball season will be interesting to say the least. I don't know how it's going to work out, because Kentucky is now kind of screwed because this is really late into the coaching hiring window. I know Kentucky is a top 5 job destination, but a lot of schools have already secured their head coach, and Kentucky is kind of behind. And a lot of the recruits and players for Kentucky are in the transfer portal right now and are probably going to make the move to Arkansas, or they're just going to go somewhere else. So Kentucky, they'll get one of the best coaches to come there, but this will be maybe a tough season coming up, being that they won't have all of their players. Because the reason all these superstars want to go to Coach Cal is that he makes them NBA products. He makes them NBA players, now, and it used to be like that. That's why he's kind of been falling off a little bit, losing to Oakland this season, Kansas State in the second round last season, then St. Peter's, and then missing the tournament because of COVID. There's kind of a reason why his success hasn't worked out, because the talent's becoming better in the basketball world. So these one and done freshmen that are superstars can't thrive in the college basketball landscape as much as somebody who's a fifth year senior like Jack Golke. But we'll see. We'll see how Coach Cal. I'm excited to see that. It'll be weird seeing Cal in red. I don't think anyone's had that go through their minds, but we'll see. It'll be an interesting time in the college basketball landscape. So that's kind of my rundown of the men's and women's championship, and a little bit of news on the coaching carousel that's happening in college basketball. The Lone Star Series took place over this last weekend during the Final Four, and it was quite the battle between the Houston Astros and the Texas Rangers. And it was kind of a rough one for both teams at different points, because the Rangers started out hot. They just beat the Houston Astros. They beat the living out of the Houston Astros. They won their first game 10-2, and then they won their second game 7-2, and it just looked like they were going to beat us, like just bad. They're going to beat the Houston Astros horrible. Like, if you don't know me, I'm a Houston Astros fan, and it looked really bad. And actually, every single player on that squad got a hit in the first two games for the Texas Rangers. So it was bad. The Astros bullpen was lacking. Everything was bad. The pitching, the offense, no one seemed awake. And then in Game 3, it kind of switched, because Ronald Blanco only gave up one hit, and the Astros won 3-1 off of a Jordan home run. They scored 3 runs, and that was kind of the only offense of the game. So the Astros were still lacking some offense in that realm, but it was Game 4 took place, I guess, yesterday now, and the Astros won 10-5, and they did that with a minor league pitcher getting pulled up, because Framber Valdez was got hurt, and they had to pull up the AAA minor league pitcher who's supposed to pitch for the Sugar Land team. They pulled him up, and he got obliterated because the Rangers were up 5-0 in the first inning. And then the Astros bullpen actually saved him, and the Astros offense came alive and won 10-5. So, where does that leave them? The Astros are 4-7 right now, and the Rangers are 6-4. And I guess you could say that, the Astros are not good. They're not good anymore, but they've started this bad in nearly all of their last few seasons. So it's not too much of a concern right now. They definitely need to make some adjustments, but I think they'll be okay. The Rangers are 6-4, and they're going to look a lot better, because they play the A's starting today. And when you hear this tomorrow, and then the Lone Star Series goes right back to Houston. And so we'll see how they match up again. So this rivalry will be half the games of the series, and the rivalry will be taking place in the first 2.5 weeks of the regular season. So that's something to watch out for, and that'll really make a difference in the division. And for both sides, I guess on the Astros, like I said earlier, the lack of offense is concerning. They have a ton of pitching injuries with Lance McCullers Jr., Justin Verlander, now Framber Valdez. They just don't have the pitching, so the offense has to come alive. And what's concerning is that the offense will hit 10 runs this game, but the next game they'll only hit 3 runs, and that's off of 1 home run and a couple walks. So the Astros just need to figure it out a little bit again. And the Rangers, they're looking really good. The same thing, though, is with some of their starters seem to be doing good. It's just the bullpen is a little lacking, and Rangers can be, they're a little hit or miss. They're a lot less than the Houston Astros by far, but the Texas Rangers, sometimes they can be off a little bit, but that's granted. But 6-4 is still a good record for the Rangers. Those are just some minor critiques of them, but they'll play each other at Minute Maid Park, and hopefully the Astros are healthy, and hopefully that can be a little bit of a sweep. Because the Rangers are... Listen, the Rangers I like. It's just Rangers fans are insufferable, and I know Astros fans can be insufferable, but Rangers fans more so ever since they won that series against us. But anyway, that's my little take on the Houston Astros and the Texas Rangers in the Lone Star Series. If you missed Jim Nance's voice from March Madness, well, don't you worry, because the Masters, a unlike any other, is this weekend. One of actually probably my favorite event of the year. And I'll give you a little bit of a Masters preview. I know one of the episodes I did a week or two ago, I gave one, but this is like the most up-to-date one, the one that I truly think as of right now. And if you don't know, it's Thursday through Sunday. Tiger's coming back, but I don't think he'll do. I don't know if he'll make the cut. I don't think he'll make it far. He may withdraw again, honestly, but he just seems to get hurt. If the conditions are perfect, then he could probably make it all 4 rounds, but that's saying he makes the cut. And we'll do a live. How I'll do this is I'll separate a live and a PGA player, and I'll have a favorites category, an underrated category, a young player category, a surprise player category. So I'll kind of separate into that. And we'll just go with it. And so in my favorites category, I think these are two that you can see coming from a mile away. In the PGA Tour, Scottie Scheffler, he grew the beard back. He's ready to go for the Masters. His putting is the one thing you have to worry about, and it's gotten a whole lot better since last season. His iron game's on top, his fairway. He literally had a bad week at the Valero Open. Or not the Valero Open, the Houston Open, and he got like second. So, and he shaved. So now the beard's coming back. He's on. And then Jon Rahm just tearing it up on the Live Tour. He won the Masters last year. He's kind of got that swag and mojo to him to kind of win it, go back to back. And so those are my two obvious favorites for the Masters. And then in my underrated category, you have Xander Schauffele on the PGA Tour, because Scheffler has won a ton this season, but Schauffele's always been kind of in there. The worst he'll do is like a top 20. He'll always kind of sneak in there, be there, and he's just he's kind of just like sneaky in there. If Rahm or Scotty were to falter, I could definitely 100% see Schauffele, come back up and win it all. And then Brooks Koepka on the Live Tour is underrated for me, because Koepka has always been in that. He's kind of like always that background character at the previous Masters, because I think the last few years, ever since Tiger won, he's always been, it seems to me, top 10. You always see him, the camera always pan to him on the final round on Sunday, and he's like 10 under, and the winner's at 12 under. Like, he's always like those two shots behind. And, and he's a major player. He only really wants to play in the majors. That's what he practices. That's what he's worked for. And also, he recently had a kid, so he's got dad strength. Same thing with Scotty. Scotty's wife is pregnant, and so he's kind of getting that dad strength. And so I could definitely see that. There seems to be a trend after, like the player's family, their wife has a kid. The PGA Tour player, the dad seems to pop off. So, that's also something to keep in mind. That's kind of also why I think Brooks Koepka is a little underrated. The dad strength is going to kick in. And then, and my young players to do well, we have Akshay Bhatia. I'm sure I'm butchering that last name, but he won the Valero Open this last weekend, and he was the last bid for the Masters, and he's only 23. So, anytime a player wins a tournament, coming into the major, like the Masters right now, you have to pick him to do well, because he's just playing the right kind of golf right now. And then on the Live Tour, and my young players to do, I have Joaquin Niemann. Now, he's a Live Tour, and he actually wasn't qualified to play for the Masters, but he went on the DP Tour and won his win, and was winning a ton of tournaments on there, and he got the special invite from the Masters to come play. He also shot 59 on the Live Tour. So that also helps. He's probably he could probably go in the underrated category, but I put him in the young players kind of to do well category. And then my surprise players are on the PGA Tour. I've got Sahith Theegala. Now, he could obviously go into the young players, but he's always Mr. Consistent. He seems to always make the cut. He seems to just be playing the right kind of golf. He's not like a super like media persona like some of the other players. He's just kind of there playing some golf, and he's right on the cusp of winning, and it would be really cool to see him possibly get one of his first wins at the Masters. But I think he'll just be a surprise player on the tour. Not on the tour. He'll be a surprise player at the Masters. I could definitely see him getting a top 20. And then my other surprise players, and I don't know how you'll react to this, but I have Bryson DeChambeau as my live golf category because, he's kind of gone out of the public eye since the live and the Brooks and DeChambeau drama, since they've all made up. But I have him winning because he used to call it a par 68. I think he's paid his burden for kind of talking bad about the course. But I really think that, he's playing well on live, and you can't discount that in tournament golf. And he's one of those guys that's really eager. He's a big golf nerd. He really wants to win this. This tournament coming up. And I wouldn't blame him. I would want to win the Masters as well. And so that's kind of how I think. That's how I kind of think of DeChambeau. DeChambeau's just like that nerd in the corner, and he really wants to win. He was a little overconfident. Actually, no. Sahith Theegala, I'm kind of looking it up. Oh, he already has one PGA Tour win. It'd be cool for a second PGA Tour win to be the Masters. But anyway, Bryson DeChambeau, he's kind of that nerd and that sits in the corner that's like, I'm better than everyone. And then he starts doing it, and it's like, oh, wait, never mind. And so that's how I kind of see the Masters playing out a little bit. DeChambeau as a surprise player. Probably my best pick as a surprise player is DeChambeau and Sahith. And then young players, Akshay and Joaquin. Underrated, Schauffele, Koepka, favorite, Scotty and Rahm. Now, if I had to pick an overall winner, who would it be? And I think it's Scotty Scheffler. He grew the beard back. I wouldn't be surprised if he won. And my second player, I guess, would probably be Brooks. I think Brooks could possibly win it. He's criminally underrated right now, and I think it would be shame to pick against him, even finishing like I would not bet against him to not finish top 20. I would bet for him to get top 20, I guess I should say. And Tiger's playing, and do I think he'll make the cut? Do I think he won't? I think he'll barely make the cut by one. Now, I don't know if he'll finish the third and fourth round. I don't know if he'll finish it. There's like a 50% chance he withdraws. He's just too hurt right now. I still think he's too hurt. He needs to play more competitive golf leading up to the Masters to really have a chance of doing well. But with his injuries, it's just hard for him. So that's how I see him. That's how I see Tiger and the Masters playing out. And that's my up-to-date Masters preview. I'm very excited to see how everyone will do. I'm excited for whoever wins this. It'll be a fun tournament. I'm just going to be in class, in my room, just watching Masters 24/7. On the burnt to crispy segment today, we'll kind of fit into the golf and Masters theme. We'll feed into it, and we'll be ranking golf clubs. Now, I've separated the golf kind of like the clubs into certain categories. So we have the driver, the putter, wedges, irons, and hybrids and woods. Now, on my least favorite golf club is by far irons, because I can't hit a green to save my life. When I play golf, I just think iron play is the hardest. Sitting that green in regulation for 200 yards, or seeing that par 3 that's 220 yards away and you're trying to hit a 5-iron, it's really hard to it's pretty difficult to do that, in my opinion. And that's why I don't like playing with irons. It's fun to hit on the range, but Irons are definitely burnt. And then in my second, and I guess the second place or whatever, I've got the putter. I love putting's fun, but it's just, I hate three putting. Three putting is horrible. And you do that with a putter. So putter is going in that category for sure, 100%. Because three putting is horrible. That's literally the only reason. In my third category, I've got hybrids and woods. Now, hybrids and woods probably could be burnt, honestly, but I think hitting hybrids are more out. The fun of hitting hybrids outweighs the frustration of hitting three woods, because three woods off the ground can either be really good or really bad. But hybrids are really fun because I can really, hit a great draw or a big cut with the hybrid, and that's one of my favorite clubs. It's kind of a rescue club. If you don't like hitting your irons, you can hit the hybrid because it makes life so much easier, so much more fun. And in second, I've got, it's between driver and wedges. Second is wedges. Wedges are fun. You can put some spin on them. You can kind of chip a little bit with them, but it's, when you're 100 yards away, it's pretty easy to hit. So I enjoy hitting my wedges, and obviously driver is number one. I mean, who are you kidding? Who am I kidding? Because driver, you can just hit it. You can hit it all day, and if you hit it all day, you'll be good at hitting fairways, and you can strength train for it and hit your driver really far. And it's really fun to watch roll long drive. It's just probably the most fun club to hit because you can drive greens, you can carry it over challenges. It's probably one of my all-time favorite clubs to hit on the golf course. So from burnt to crispy. Burnt is irons. Fourth is the putter. Third is the hybrids and woods. Second is the wedges. And first is driver. And we'll just go right into today in sports history. Today is April 9th. And in 1987, for the third time, Wayne Gretzky scores 7 points, 1 goal, 6 assists in a Stanley Cup game, and passes Gene Beliveau, Beliveau, as the all-time playoff scoring champ. And eventually, Wayne Gretzky will be known as the all-time great, the Michael Jordan of hockey, which is pretty cool. That 7 points is a lot. 1 goal, 6 assists. That's really impressive that he can, that shows that he's a team player in every aspect. But, kind of switching it up, we're a little bit of hockey on today in sports history because it's just cool to see how great Wayne Gretzky was and is regarded as the best of all time in that sport. And that's just an interesting thing to know today in sports history and kind of streamlining it. And thank you for listening to this episode of the Crispy Fried Takes podcast. Hopefully you can give us a follow on whatever platform you're listening to and keep on listening because it will only get better from here. So let this episode sizzle in a bit, and I'll catch you here next week with me. Thank you for listening and have a great rest of your day.